Welcome to Retirement Mentorship. My name is Freeman Lindy. I'm a certified financial planner, enrolled agent, which is a tax license to be tax advisor. I'm a Amazon best-selling author of tax saving strategies as well as 3D retirement income. And we are here to pit my knowledge, all the financial planning that we do with clients, with people entering into retirement, right inside of retirement. Right, those are my people. You are my people if you're one of them, and that's all I do. And so today we're going to pit me against AI, right? How do I stack up against ChatGPT? Or maybe since I was around first, how does ChatGPT stack up against me? So we're going to do a little face off live here on the channel. So we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, towards the end, we'll do a question from the audience. So if you have any questions that you want to ask to be in a future show, you can throw those in the comments in the YouTube channel, live in the chat if you're watching this live, or you can email them to questions@retirementmentorship.com. And we also have our state of the course sketch, so a couple different parts of the show here. But first, and without further ado, we're going to do a certified financial planner versus AI and see what happens here. So we're going to throw this on here. And so I put the first prompt into AI earlier just to so you don't have to listen to me type all that out. And so we're just going to look at it, right? So Chuck and Diane, that's kind of my avatar for people entering retirement. So my name is Chuck, and I did this, right? You can see it says login here on chat. So this is a empty browser. It has no history of anything I put in here. It's all up to just live what's going to happen as it goes. So my name is Chuck, 61, wife Diane is 60. We plan to retire together next year. I'm 62, 1.4 million in his 401k, 600k in hers. Her social security will be 2,500. Hers will be 2,000. We live on $8,000 a month, not including tax or medical, right? So that's just like their take-home pay. And that's one thing we always do, right? Is like we don't have a lot of people that keep budgets, but most people are pretty good at living on their take-home pay. So if you know what that is, we can base a lot of retirement planning after that. Home is paid off. What do I need to know to retire? Can you make me a financial plan? So it says we're in a solid position. That's awesome. Recaps some of the stuff we have in here. So it kind of does our recaps our expenses, Social Security, $54,000 a year. The gap then, right? Because if you got, as we look at, we go back to our drawings here. This is what it's doing, right? It says, hey, we know that your expenses are $110,000 to $125,000 a year. So your expenses are here, right? We know that you've got Social Security income, which is going to get you to whatever, here-ish. And so your gap that we're going to need to pull out of here, let's use green for that. Your gap here, $60,000 to $70,000 a year. That's what we're going to need to pull out of your portfolio. That's the number your portfolio must sustain. So it's spot on there. So far, so good. So question, is $2 million enough? Using a conservative version of the 4% rule, 4% of $2 million is $80,000 a year. Now, one quick thing, right? If they need this, and I didn't really do the math. I don't know if it's after taxes and insurance. Yeah, so this is after taxes and insurance. And so yeah, the gross number, right? 54,000. So this is gross. Okay, perfect. And so it says, hey, we're pretty good. You got $80,000 a year. It says you need 60 to 70. But healthcare costs could spike before Medicare. It's true. Markets are unpredictable, especially in the early years. A safer withdrawal rate would be 3 to 3.75. So this is really interesting here that it's doing this. So we actually just covered this, Ethan, like 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had a whole episode on supercharging the 4% rule. So with the strategy that we use, so if you haven't watched that, go back. It's on our channel. Just open up the channel in a new tab here. You can go back and find that one. But I think you can get more than 4% a year off, right? Which that would be another $20,000 a year that you could spend if you have it allocated correctly. But then they go even more conservative than that. And I'm just going to tell you, like over all of history, actually, if you manage your stuff correctly, if you were only taking 3 to 3.75% out, you would end up with many multiples of what you started with, even after inflation. So it's been a little conservative here, and I think, right, chat doesn't want to be sued. Most big broker dealers don't want to be sued. So there's a lot of really tentative stuff that they'll put out. And so, okay, 5 big decisions. So they're going to give us some framing here that we need to get right. When to take Social Security, right? If you take it at 62, you get a permanent reduction. Wait until 67, about 30% higher. Wait even longer. So 70 to 75% more benefit than 62. That's accurate. So gives you a range here. So strategy to consider: hey, do we live off the 401k early? Cool, and delay at least one of your Social Security benefits. This reduces your long-term risk dramatically. So yeah, and that can absolutely be part of the strategy, right? So if we say, hey, you've got one Social Security that we're going to take right away, and the other one we're going to kick in later, so it's much bigger, right? When one of you passes away, you lose the smaller of the two. So this one's going to go to 0, but now we keep a larger one for a long time. So that can definitely be a good Social Security strategy. It doesn't really tell us what to do, but it points that out. Health insurance, you got a critical gap here from 62 to 65. That's true. So you have your marketplace plans, and you can get some subsidies if you manage it correctly. So, and if you've got a good point here, your withdrawals are going to equal your income for Affordable Care Act. So we're going to want to pay attention to that. So you want to control your withdrawals. This could save you $1,000 per year. Accurate. Withdrawal strategy order matters. Don't just pull evenly from accounts. A smarter sequence: 401k withdrawals, but controlled. Keep taxable income low early. Consider partial Roth conversions if available. So again, I think there's like conflicting. Again, it's just a framework, right? Just maybe some things to think about is what it's giving us. But there's a bunch of different things here that's kind of contradicting, right? You can't both take 401k withdrawals, but also keep your taxable income low early. I mean, you can, but you can't. If you're doing 401k withdrawals and partial conversions, that's all taxable income, and so that would be making it high, right? And if we're delaying Social Security, like it suggested earlier, then you're getting all your income from 401ks, and so it's all taxable. Versus if you had some of your income coming from Social Security, part of that would be tax free. And so it's just kind of pointing out generic stuff you can do, but it's somewhat contradictory. So that can be confusing. Number 4, market risk, sequence of return risk. The biggest danger is a market crash in your first 5 years. This is accurate. This is 100% true. So, and that's what we want to plan for. So most people are way too conservative. Some people, since we've had nothing but a bull market for a long time, they're too aggressive. I don't like using conservative aggressive, but yeah. So there's a big difference. Another time frame here between this and this, right? You end up at the same point, which means that your average returns are the same over time. But when, and even you might even have, maybe in the second line, maybe it comes down here and then do that. So they each had a big, 30% downturn, 30% downturn, or whatever, right? And so they both had one. Long-term returns are exactly the same. But there's going to be a big difference between that happening in your first 5 years of retirement versus it happening in years 10 through 15. And the reason is, if you're 100% invested in equities, right, you're going to be pulling money out of here and you're selling low, which means that when it comes back, you don't have as much time to come back and you can run out of money, right? Versus if it happens up here, we're tracking way more closely. Same thing happens, but your money can last a lot longer, right? And again, we cover this back in our supercharging the 4% rule. So go back and just watch that one. But this is accurate. You would want to do that. And this is actually, I find interesting. Keep 2 to 3 years of expenses in cash and bonds. Yep, may even want to go longer than that right away, because again, first 5 years, big market crash could be here, but I have no problems with this so far. So that's good. Inflation, right? That's always my biggest thing, right? We talk about that a lot in this book here, 3D Retirement Income. Your biggest threat in retirement is not the temporary declines in the market, it's the permanent increase in prices. So, right, your income needs to keep growing, not just in the first 10 years, but right, you must plan to grow, not just survive. Sweet. So I'm glad it threw that in there. So then they've got this. Here's a simple retirement projection. Age 62 to 67, withdraw this amount, delay one or both Social Securities if possible, manage taxes plus. So just do all these things. Cool. Easy enough. Social Security increases significantly if you wait till 67 for one of them, which means you can reduce your portfolio withdrawals. Again, yep. So if we are, right, if it's going back to this, and I shouldn't have drawn this other chart on top of it here, but if we go back to here, right, if you are delaying one Social Security, that means we're pulling all this out from our portfolio all this time. But then when our Social Security kicks in here, well, now our withdrawals can come way down here. And so if you are retiring pre-Social Security, one of the things that you can calculate, right, is like, hey, we know that this amount is an unsustainable withdrawal amount for life, but we don't need to. We only need to sustain it until we get here and make sure that we have enough portfolios at this point to generate that smaller gap. So, yep. Again, make it seem pretty simple. I don't know if it's as simple as they. So here we go. What I'd recommend. Let's see what chat recommends here. Strong plan, retire at 62, delay at least your Social Security till 67. It's usually smart. Usually it would delay the larger of the two to make it really big. Diane could take hers earlier. Withdraw $70,000 a year initially. Keep 200 to 250 in safer assets. So I'm going to pick a bone with this in a second here. Or safer plan, work 1 or 2 more years, or reduce spending. Either one dramatically improves success odds. That's true. It would dramatically improve them from 87% to 99.999. So if you need that, and we can talk about that, but and then tax strategy. Between 62 and 67, consider gradually moving money out of your 401k, which is tax deferred. Avoid large RMD spikes later. Okay, so here's one thing that I'm going to pick a fight with, right? We already told it that our net expenses before taxes and insurance are $8,000 a month. That's $9,600, $96K a year. So if we're delaying Social Security, hers all the way, and we can't, Chuck's all the way till 67, and Diane's until next year or 2 years out when she can finally take it, how are they going to live on 70K? Right? So even there, you can just see like we gave it these numbers and it's already not doing the math correctly, which is pretty simple math. So it's an issue there. You can retire at 62, but it's not a set and forget it. That's true. It requires active planning for the first 10 years. Absolutely. Yep. That's why I work with like people close to and in the first decade of retirement. There's a ton of work to do here. So what should we do next? Estimate real retirement expenses, include healthcare and taxes, decide on Social Security timing, build a 5-year withdrawal plan, set investment allocation for retirement, talk to a fee-only fiduciary advisor. Ooh, I like that one. But really quick, right? I really like that specifically says fee-only fiduciary, right? You want someone who works in your best interest only, doesn't work for the company that they work for, they work for you, and someone who's fee-only, which means they only get paid to give you advice, regardless of what the advice is, right? So don't get paid more to recommend one product over another. That way you're getting great, unbiased review there. So, okay, this is all awesome. So let's ask it some more questions. Again, I don't know what it's going to say. This is live. So we'll see. So for people like, oh, all your stuff is scripted. Well, we're about to find out. So I want to find out, because I talked about the health insurance subsidy, right? One of the big things was, hey, if you're retiring at 62, you can't take Medicare until 65, right? And so it's going to be 3 years for Chuck and 4 years for Diane before they can take Medicare. What are they going to do there? So let's just see here. What do I need to keep my income at in order to qualify for a health insurance subsidy with the Affordable Care Act health insurance? So we'll throw that in there. Let's see what it says. One of the most important levers. So modified adjusted gross income compares to the federal poverty limit, right? And so for a married couple for 2026, right? So you're going to need 400 plus. So we need to keep it below 88. And above 88,000 or 400% of the things, still eligible rule currently expanded. It's not true. It's actually not currently expanded. That expanded went away. So there's an error right there. It was currently expanded to still give you a subsidy after this. As of 2026, you can't. So unless they changed it in the last couple of weeks, which is certainly possible, I guess, but I don't think so. And so thanks to a recent law extension. Yeah. So anyways, 88 is going to be kind of where they are. But again, they need 84 just to, yeah, here we go. But ACO only looks at taxable income, not total withdrawals. Target modified adjusted gross income should be 50 to 80. Keeps premiums heavily subsidized. Okay, great. Roth withdrawals are not counted. Cash savings not counted. Basis after tax not counted. So these all count towards your income. That's true. Strategy for you, very important. At 62, before Social Security, withdraw 60 from 401k. Spend additional from cash or Roth. You live on 90 to 100, but you report a low enough income for ACA. So that's kind of all true, right? But So we got all this. Here we go. So he does mention a bunch of stuff here. If I need $80,000 a month net and all my money is in pre-tax 401ks, how do I keep my withdrawals to $7,000 a month, like you mentioned, or keep my modified adjusted gross income under 88,000? Let's see what it says. You can't. Yeah, that's certainly true. So that's going to push you out of the ACA things. Yep. Your specific situations, what we need, what you probably need to withdraw, accept higher income. You're just too bad. Reduce temporary spending temporarily. Yep. Create flexibility. Build some cash before retirement. Earlier, build some cash savings. Shift some funds to Roth via conversions. Yeah. So like this is one of the things that we would help people with. Right, is trying to figure out, okay, are there ways you might be stuck in the first year? We could delay retirement, but I'm not a big fan of that. Are there ways that we can have more taxable income in one year to reduce income in future years? So even though you may not be able to qualify for subsidies in all the years that we need, 4 years in their case, can we qualify for it in 2? Right? Can we, hey, really high income the first year, you're not going to qualify for it. 2 years of when you're both on Marketplace and need it, then he's going to get Medicare, right? And so then we're just paying for Marketplace for one, and so then we might be able to go back to high income, things like that. So it gives you some suggestions. There's a lot of calculating here. You could dig into that, but you would want to really do that. You mentioned a key aspect is how our retirement income portfolio is invested. What would you recommend from an asset allocation standpoint for our 401ks? 401ks. Let's do this. 401k. There we go. Especially in the first 5 to 10 years, you'll need 70 to 100k. Time horizon 30 years. Yep, this is true. We want this. You still need growth, not just safety. Love that. Thank you, chat. There's way too many people that are all concerned about crashes and keeping your money conservative and putting it in bonds and CDs and annuities, whole life, all that stuff. But no, you don't want to crash. That's true, but longevity is our bigger concern. So recommendation. So then, okay, here we go. So now it gives us our standard 60-40 portfolio of stocks and bonds, which is very classic, right? 60% stocks, 40% US, 20% international, 40% bonds. Okay, but here's the thing. Again, we talked about this in the last video. So here's a bucket strat. Okay, we'll talk about, let's do this first. Bucket 1, cash, 2 to 3 years of spending, 150 to 250 in money market short-term bonds. Bucket 2, another 5 to 7 years in bonds, stability plus income. Bucket 3, 10 years plus your growth engine. Put that in stocks. Yeah, I've seen this one quite a bit, right? So again, you want as you look at, give us some more paper here. If you look at your different buckets or your timeline here, you want a real conservative bucket for your 1, 2, 3 years or so, and then you want another conservative bucket, and you're going to pull money out of there for the next few years, so you get to about 10 years, and that's when you want your we call them red buckets around here, your equities, pull out of that, and then for every year plus, that's where we're going to take our money from, right? And again, it's fine, it's whatever, but here's my thing though, right? If you've got 10 years of income, which is about what this is, right? If you got 40% of your money, where is it? We have 40% in cash and bonds, right? We want up, so of a $2 million portfolio, then we have $800,000, making what, 3 to 5% maybe? Are you going to spend $800,000 in the first? How long is it going to take you to spend that? And some people say it would take you 10 years because if you're pulling, again, if they have 4% rule, $80,000 a year, that's 10 years of your income set aside kind of in your short and what. So you spend this down first, and then you let your stocks grow, and then 10 years plus, there's a pretty good chance they're going to be up. So we pull from there. But in reality, right, we're not just going to spend down our cash first and then spend down our bonds and then spend down our equities. We're not going to do that, right? When the market's up, you can spend from there. And when the market's down, you don't want to spend. We don't want to withdraw from there. So the way that we do it, again, is we just use 2. red and blue, equities and fixed income. And we have our fixed income there to protect our equities when they go down. And so but if we're doing that, right, we need to protect against the downturn. How long are downturns? Well, they're 5 years or less historically. Great Recession was 5 years. COVID was 6 months. 2022 to 2023 was 2 years. 2 to 5 years, right? And so do we really need 10 years of all our money making 3 to 5% instead of the, I don't know, whatever, 8 to 12% long-term historical average of equities? I don't think so. And we need 3 to 5 years. And even kind of said that earlier, but then it's changed its mind and went back to a 60-40 portfolio because they're designed to give you basic cookie cutter advice. The way we tell our clients, and I'm not telling you because you're not my client and I'm not giving you investment advice. Disclaimer. I don't know if we can throw that up there, Ethan, but the way we teach our clients, right, is that we want to protect against, right, sequence of return risk, all those things. We want to protect against downturns. So we want 3 to 5 years to protect against those, pull money out of there, let equities grow. But 3 to 5 years is not 40%, it's like 20% then. And so we have an extra 20% of our money making 8 to 12 instead of 3 to 5. And how much more does that get you over time? Again, we kind of covered a lot of this back in our supercharge, and it's the topic of this book here. So you could just read the long version of it in there. So yeah, okay. So chat just ends up defaulting to basic advice there. I'd kind of disagree with that. Let's do this. You mentioned moving money from our tax deferred 401k into Roth. How much should I do in Roth conversions? Oh, stay logged out. Yeah, there we go. Okay. There's no single right amount. Smart goes up to certain tax limits each year. No required minimum distributions yet. Your income control. Yep. So you got tax windows is true. So a lot of times people have lots of different tax windows. And we talked about this in our Roth conversions episode we did a little while ago. So you can go back and find the one. I think it's called like to Roth or not to Roth, right? But you've got different, like if you're right, if they're going to 62 here, you have from 62 to 65, and then like another window maybe until 70 when your Social Security definitely has to kick in. And then, maybe your RMDs are 73. Maybe for him, they're 75, or for her, they're 75. For him, they're 73. It changes a little bit. So you have different windows when based on income you need, when you're pulling things, health insurance, Medicare, RMDs, IRMA, all these different things makes more sense to take those. The goal of Roth conversions, avoid future RMDs, required minimum distributions. Yep. So this one right here is kind of the end of that window. Once you both hit that age, right, both Chuck and Diane are going to have to pull a certain amount, your required minimum distribution every year out of their portfolio. And a lot of times it's higher than you want it to be. And so it sends you into a new tax bracket. It makes you pay more on your Medicare, et cetera, et cetera. Avoid huge taxes in your 70s and 80s. Yep. We want to be proactive on that stuff. So here we go. Smart conversion targets. So 62 to 65 ACA, do small or no Roth conversions. Golden window is where you make your move. Medicare replaces ACA, no subsidies. Fill up the 22% tax bracket, top of the 12, top of the 22. Give you some rough estimates there. That's great. Each year, add up Social Security withdrawals and convert enough to reach that. So yes, that could totally work. There's also some IRMA brackets in there, like when you pay more for your Medicare and some of these other kind of things. So it's not always as simple as just going to the next bracket. It's a good starting place. You'll definitely want to do more calculations than that. Yeah, perfect. So I mean, like this is not. There's a lot of things that it like does a really good job of making you think through some of this stuff and at least pointing these things out. It's not really doing the math. I mean, maybe if you really dug into this thing. So, and we're getting long on time here, but what should I do next? This seems like a lot of work to actually calculate all this stuff. Here we go. You're not wrong. This can turn into a spreadsheet now. There we go. So set a good enough retirement. Yeah, if you want to be good enough, that's fine. My brother once told me he was explaining his really basic financial plan. He said, I've just realized that it's okay to not be optimized. I'm like, yeah, it's okay to not be optimized. It's just not optimal. So, if If you want to be optimal, if you want to be okay, then yeah. If you want to be good enough, then sure, go for it. Use guardrails that are precision. Start with that. Okay. Target some stuff. Annual Roth conversions. Do this once per year. How much do we spend last year? How much do we need? So you can do all that. It takes 1 to 2 hours per year, not constant effort. There we go. Gives you a couple other tools you can use. Consider one-time advisor, not ongoing. Hire fee-only fiduciary planner. Yep, love that. Gives you a flat fee, not managing your money. You can do that. Organizations like NAPFA, National Association of Personal Financial Advisors. Yep. So again, some interesting stuff. I'll just say at the end here, right? Like this is where like chat likes to be really specific, right? And it likes to kind of just try to give you the answer, but it's always going to give you conservative answers. So if we look at it being wrong on some of these things, it already gave a couple things that were just wrong. So you make a few $1,000 mistake on the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. You make a few grand mistake on converting too much or too little. It just says, hey, do this. And so you convert to the top of the bracket, great. And then you didn't do nearly enough. And so your RMDs send you 2 more brackets ahead. And then you pay the widow tax when one of you passes away, and which we explain in here. And so there is a lot in here. And this is always it's not 1 to 2 hours per year. I'm just going to tell you, like, if you want a good enough plan and pay tens of thousands of dollars extra or miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars opportunity, then yes, you can take 1 to 2 years and it's not a lot. But it is a lot more work than like I spend, I don't know, a dozen hours plus, way more than that on each individual client per year, projecting, doing things, whatever else. So this idea that you can spend 1 to 2 hours per year, and I'm good at this, I do it all the time. So you are going to end up with far less optimal results doing that. And then if you're just not invested properly or doing these other things, you make a big downturn, mistaking a downturn, all those can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would say, right, if you kind of do this stuff and you're like, okay, I can get away with 1 to 2 hours a year, you can't. And so either you got to commit to the dozens and dozens of hours that it takes to learn this stuff and do it, or you can hire it out. But minimally, we always say, go find somebody who can show you what you don't know, right? Because that, it's 2 things, right? Sometimes it's what you don't know is killing you. And sometimes it's not that's killing you. It's the things that you think you know for sure that just aren't so, right? And so I would minimally, right, go find somebody. You can go to fiduciaryfinancialplanningnetwork.com and find a fiduciary there. NAPFA is another good place. If you want to work with us, there's probably links in the description to start that. But so yeah, chat is bringing up some good stuff. There weren't too many things that were just blatantly wrong, but enough things that I would not trust yet anyway. The fate of millions of dollars to artificial intelligence. So there we go. Okay, let's do a quick stay the course sketch. Right, so we're kind of in this weird, as of right now, right? Market was down on Friday and Monday, and then it kind of popped back up yesterday and today, and we don't really know where we're at. And so, right, we know, right, that market's been up and down, up and down, up and down, and we're here, and we know that eventually it's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down, and be higher. It's this weird, like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen in the short term. That's what gives people anxiety, right? And rightfully so in some ways. And so the idea is like, so what do we do? What do we do in this part? And that's where we call this the stay the course sketch, because I sign off on all my weekly emails with stay the course. Now you got to have a course, which back to our previous segment, right? Get a good plan, know that it's the right thing, and that's not AI hallucinating on you. But you want to have a plan, and then unless your goals change, your plan probably doesn't change. Right now, new tax laws might change some things. There might be some opportunities to take advantage of some things. But for the most part, it's just, hey, whether it does this or this or this, like, it doesn't really matter. So I know it produces anxiety, but probably the best thing to do is, when we a lot of times will tell our clients is like, hey, we'll let you know when the market's up. Look at your accounts when they're up. When they're down, when there's weird stuff happening, just don't look at it, because the only people that get hurt on a roller coaster are the ones who jump off. And the more you watch it, the harder it's going to be to stay invested. So have a course, stay the course. The more you look at the news, the more you watch things, the more anxiety you're going to have, right? So if we also looked at a correlation between attention, how much attention you're paying, and anxiety, those are directly correlated, right? So the less attention you pay, the less anxiety that you will have. So times like these, as long as you have a plan, stay the course, stick to the plan, and don't worry about it. Okay, and then lastly, question from a audience member. Ben said, I have cash to invest in a 529. That's a college savings plan for kids. With everything going on right now, when's the best time to invest it? Yeah, I mean, if I knew that, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. Be managing billionaire hedge funds. But since we don't know exactly when the best time to invest it, right? The way that we think about this kind of framework that we would use is, hey, the market's been going up and down, right? It's kind of going down. We think, it might keep going down, which like, well, hey, do we invest it now or do we wait? And because if it goes down, we can buy even lower, right? And then we can ride that back up, right? So it might do this. It might also do this. And then if we didn't do it here, at some point we're going to have to invest it, and now we're going to have to invest it here instead of here, and then we missed out, right? So that's kind of what they're asking. Hey, do we wait for a bigger dip, or do we just pull the trigger now? Generally, the best time to invest is when you have the money, and the best time to pull out is when you need the money. I mean, obviously, you want a red and a blue bucket, equity and fixed income, so you can pull it out from the right place. And so if you have money, you should probably just throw it in there, and then you just don't have to worry about it. If you are trying to be more tactical, then one thing you could do is you could say, well, hey, we are waiting for X threshold to invest it in. So you want to identify two things, right? Hey, at some point, I'm for sure going to invest it, right? And so we kind of hit minus 10% down for a hot second there. And so maybe you say, well, hey, at minus 15, I'm going to invest it. And even though it might hit minus 20 later, I don't care. I still invested it here. That's a great return. Whether it does this before it comes out or this before it comes back, either way, I invested it here. And even when the market comes back to an all-time high, I made a great return there. Awesome. But the other thing you need to identify is not just where you're going to invest it as it's going down, but you need to identify, well, and as it comes back up, I'm for sure going to invest it by Y, right? And it might be back at an all-time high. It might be, 5% down, whatever else. But you need to have both things. It's the same thing of trying to get out of the market. If you're trying to time the market and you're getting out, you also need to time when you're getting back in, which is really difficult to do. So in this case, when you have new cash, you're trying to put it in, you need to identify, well, hey, at what low point will I put it in? I need to stick to that. And if it never gets that low and it starts going back up, at what recovery point will I put it in on the way up? So you identify those two things and then stick to the plan. So that's kind of how I would frame new money going in. And obviously, if you are the kind of person who has pulled all your money out based on what you think might happen, that's a really bad idea. And we cover that in here. So hopefully that's helpful to you. We will see you next week. We're here every week, 4 p.m. Central Time live. You can always throw stuff in the chat or make comments to show live. Otherwise, we will, you can watch the replays afterwards. So, well, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Cheers.